Things change.
Hey,
My name is Lee Bowman,
and how old are
and
you?
I'm 85 years old.
85 years old. And you were in World War II?
In World War II, and I went into the Battle of the Bulge.
You're in the Battle of the Bulge?
Yeah.
Were you drafted, or did you...
I was drafted. I could have stayed out, but I volunteered to be drafted. And took my basic training down in Jacksonville, Florida. And that was supposed to be training for the islands, down the swamps and stuff. But they needed men over there, and after the battle through France and stuff, you know. So they shipped me over to Germany. I went over out of New York in the Queen Mary, and I believe they said there was 28,000 men on that boat.
28,000?
We had to sleep on deck 2 days, then go down to the staterooms and take a bath and stuff like that, you know. And the next 2 days we're out on the deck again. The way we got across, I mean, it was 12 or 14 days because of the zigzagging all over, so the submarines don't catch up with us. And we landed in England, got off there, and
you remember what day you landed?
I have no idea anymore.
Okay.
But it was 1944, I believe. I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, they had already invaded France and lost a lot of men. So they put all of us on a boat and put us right over into France and supplied more men for the companies that were over there fighting. And I happened to get into the Third Army under General Patton, and he was coming up from Africa. He was going to hit the Bulge, and I got there just in time to get into that fight. And it was cold, real cold. But now and then it heated up pretty bad. All the fighting going on, and got through that pretty well. After a few days of that, I was a seasoned soldier.
What's a season?
That changes your whole outlook in life after that, because either you're scared or you're not. But I come out of it pretty good, and I felt good about this. And well, we after the Bulge, we went toward Germany, and Patton called us in one day, the whole regiment around there, and stood up on the platform and gave us a speech. He went back and forth on that platform with his 6-shooters, you know, hanging out. And he says, we're going to wipe those Germans out. We're going to do it right now, and we're going to push them. We will not let them stop. And that's exactly what he did. But it cost a lot of men, but he saved a lot of time and a lot of other men. And we took these little towns a little at a time, you know, and you had to be quick on the trigger because they were shooting at you all the time. And I went through Nuremberg, and I couldn't understand, oh no, Erfurt, airport. And I couldn't understand why we didn't go over to the airport instead of going around it. So the fellas stopped for the day, and I said, I'm going back to that airport to find out what's back there. Nobody stopped there. Nobody knows what's going on there. So I found a bicycle. I drove back along the road back to the airport. Nobody there, and the bunks were all made up and everything. And so I started to tear the bunks up and look around. Pistols under every bunk. And I come back and I was loaded with pistols. But I had a surprise. I rode back to where I was, and my company wasn't there. Here they had sent somebody, one squad down for reconnaissance to see what was going on, you know. They got captured right where I was riding this bicycle.
Wow.
If I looked down there, I could have seen them, but I didn't. I was too busy looking ahead. So they had to go down there and try and get these people back again, you know, and the squad back. And I just got there in time to get into the fight. In the meantime, it started to get dark, and the artillery came down, you know, over the top of us, and it was a pretty sight that you want to see, you know, fireworks, and this artillery coming into this little town, trying to recapture the people that were taken, you know. We never did get them, though. They took them right straight through. But and we took this little town and we stayed there for the night. And, you know, when you see a German, it's either you or him. And our M1 rifles was semi-automatic. They had a clip-in. But they had bolt-action rifles, which was our advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we could shoot them before they got a chance to shoot back. But we took this little town and we waited overnight, and they had a reconnaissance out to get these captives back again. Never did find them. And so we moved out here and there and all over, different towns. I never knew what town it was when I was in half the time. And little villages and through the fields and stuff. And one time we went across the field and it was night. And we lined up and went over. One fella must have hit a tripwire and the flare went up. Well, everybody froze. When you freeze like that, you can't be noticed standing still. And I looked down the line like this and see all these soldiers frozen like this. I was surprised that nobody moved. But they didn't. And after the flare went out, well, we moved ahead. And by the time we got to the woods, it was starting to get daylight. And we started up through the woods there, and in the path there, they had blown trees over so the tanks couldn't get up. So we went over around them because we weren't sure they weren't mines laid in there. And we got to the top, we heard some sound of something. And we didn't know who it was, so we laid down and waited. Here come the German soldiers up with food in little tanks and stuff. So we figured we're going to see what they're doing. So we jumped out and we took them captive. And I said, take us where you're taking this food. Oh, they took us down there. There was a whole company of Germans sitting around waiting for this food, and we come in there on them, and they had no chance because the whole company kept captive. So that was one ordeal. Wasn't so bad, but we had a lot of fighting. Went through the woods one time, and they told us to dig in, so we dug in, and on the tram road there, above us there was a little brick building, you know. And I had my hole about half done, and I'm going up to see what this hole is, this building's about. Well, I went up there and I opened the door, and I had the surprise of my life. There was a German, and he was so scared of me, he dropped his rifle, and his eyes got big, and his face got pale, and he just run out of that building and down the tram road all he could go. I hollered for him to stop, but that poor guy, I couldn't shoot him. I just let him go. I couldn't shoot him in the back. As scared as he was, I knew he wasn't going to be any bother. But imagine, he was scared of me. So we went out through the woods and after a while, and we were about ready to attack another full of close pines, you know, small pines, and I was back of a big tree, and all of a sudden these screaming meanies, they're whistling shells that shot in dozens of them, you know, and you lay down on the ground, and if you didn't put your arm under you, you jumped up about 4 or 5 inches every time one went off, and it would come down. Your nose would bleed if you didn't have something soft to land on. That's how powerful it was. We called them screaming me because they would whistle and scream when they come in. And after that, I guess they figured everybody was dead, but they didn't hit a one of us. They came in short, and so we got orders to move out. I looked back and here tanks came in the back of us, and we went over, you know, just about ready to move around my tree, and I tripped and fell. And lo and behold, splinters flew off the tree right above my head. If I wouldn't have fell, I'd have been riddled full of bullets. So you see, somebody was looking out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And they come running over then, see whether I was hit or not. No, I says, I just tripped and fell. And well, I says, you guys get out of here so you don't get shot. So they moved over ahead. And I got up and I moved ahead then. And I was all right then. So we got out of that pretty good. After that, we went through the towns and stuff, you know, wherever we were needed. And you had to fight your way through every town. And then I was tired, so tired, when you'd go in there and you'd sit up against the wall and fall asleep right away. Or else you couldn't move at all, regardless. And the food, when the kitchens caught us once or twice a week, you know, we had good hot meals. Other times we eat it out of Cracker Jack boxes, I call them. But that's the way it was. And it was hard every day. It was hard. But then now and then they'd come around and say, who wants to go for a rest for a couple of days? We go over to up in the mountains someplace for a rest. Well, everybody was so tired, they didn't want to go anyplace. They just want to rest. I said, I'll go, but I don't have any money to spend. Well, Sergeant went around and said, Bowman wants to go to rest again. Buck up your money here. They'd all slap money in his hand and he'd bring it over, slap it here. Good buddies, you know, always had money. We couldn't do nothing with it because either send it home or keep it. So they give me $700. $700, sure, go and spend it someplace. But that was nice. So we got into where was that now? the nicest town and nicest city and nicest country over Austria. Austria, that was wonderful. You couldn't believe it. The land and everything was so pure and clean, and the streams were nice with that trout in them. And up in the mountains at night, you'd hear the herders yodeling from one mountain to the next. That was nice to hear. And church up on top of the hill. Oh, that was wonderful to see. And what I couldn't understand, they had these mountain goats running wild on the mountains there. And they didn't have the food. Why they didn't get food from that, I don't know, but they didn't. They just kept them, as herded them and stuff. And I got a pass one time on ski slopes. Well, I went up there on the ski slopes, and my gosh, there was snow up there, and flowers. The flowers were blooming like mad through the snow. I couldn't get over this. And one time we took a town, and it was on the side of a hill, and the little town was down below us. And, well, this was a nice big place, so we bunkered up in there in that nice big, looked like a ranch house type, And some of the people were in there. They started to clean up for us, and they said, "This people come here from all over the world." I said, "What for?" He took us down under the porches and stuff, and down there was a big room, mud, full of mud. People come from all over the world to lay in this mud for arthritis.
Did it work?
It helped a lot of them, and they come back again, every now and then, That was a big thing there. Well, I learned something there. Mud is good for arthritis. So, war was over. They helped the German soldiers to get back through the country by putting them on trains. And they told me to go out here and sit, and these soldiers come down out of the mountains, tell them to go over there to the railroad tracks, and they'll pick them up this evening and take them there, and it won't clog up the road and stuff, So I was doing this, and all by myself. And I sitting there looking up. Here come a German officer down through one arm. He came over to me, and I says, "You get a ride on a train up there." I said, "You ought to go up there." And boy, he was coming for me. I had to grab my rifle. I says, "You do what I say, or you won't go at all. You don't tell me what to do. I'm going to America when this is over." I says, "If you could walk." So finally, he didn't go up, but he walked around me. But he was going to kill me. It just happened that he had no weapons. He was angry because I told him what to do. So after that day, they took us away and had us do some other guard duty. And they said, "Who wants to go to Paris?" "Oh," I says, "I do, but I have no money." Well, my buddy says, "We'll give you money if you want to go." So what did they do? They emptied their hands and their pocketbooks and gave me all the money that I needed to go to Paris for 5 days. What, that was wonderful. This was after the war was over. And I went there, and they had bunkers for everybody, nice homes, you know, places in the middle of the city. And then they had tours of the city and everything. Fed us good. Gave us a drink of cognac. They loved their cognac. That was a soft, dark liquid. If you drank two of them, you seen double. One fellow says, I don't drink this. He says, you want it. So I drank his and mine. I didn't know what I was eating then, but it was good. And anyway, I went back to the outfit, and they had trouble with the Russians coming in. It says, we're going to send you up to Czechoslovakia. Who wants to go? I said, I'll go any place. It don't matter to me. So there's 5 or 6 of us, got in a truck, and they went up through Czechoslovakia, through Prague, and out through a little town out there, and they had a place where they had a tier hotel on the side of the mountain. There must have been 6 or 8 tiers of rooms there, all balconies overlooking the valley and the little town down below. And they put us in there, and we were the only ones in the whole thing. There must have been 1,000 rooms there. So we went there, and we picked out our rooms, and then we went down to downtown, and we asked how the people were doing, and they were doing fine until one fellow come running up, screaming. He says, the Russians are down at my house, and he says, they have my women, and they're going to kill everybody. Well, come down and help us. So I grabbed my gun and went down. And they must have seen me coming, because they disappeared, and they never did find them after that. And they told us then later on that they were coming in on trains, you know, and they were raping all the women on the trains and doing anything they want, you know. And they had no business there. So I says, well, you people have to protect yourself. If you have guns, you can shoot them now. Well, they didn't know that. And having guns was against the law there. But I says, well, you've got to protect yourself now. Well, they had a big feed for us that night. And next day, 2 or 3 days later, why they came there and picked us up and took us back to our outfits again. But all they needed was a little encouragement to protect themselves from the Russians coming in there and doing what they want. The Russians weren't supposed to be there. So after we got back to the outfit again, they sent us here and there for just relief, you know, and just things to do. And finally they said, some of your boys are going back to the States now. Well, the older ones had more time in than I did. So they went first, and later on I went back through, but I had to go through different outfits.
What's that?
That was bad, because they were ACAC outfits, you know, and Air Force outfits. And I had a lot of souvenirs. So the first thing they did was tell me that I wouldn't dare have any firearms. They have to turn them all in so nobody gets hurt. You know what they did?
What did they do?
I got one back, and they stole the rest of them. Said I was allowed to take them home anyway. That's how they got their souvenirs. So I brought some home, but I had a lot more that I could have brought home. But I come home. The trip home was on a Liberty ship. And that Liberty ship got into a storm. I was never seasick, but I started to get seasick, and the guy says, "Here's a cigarette. I don't smoke. Well, take this cigarette." And I got enough cups, puffs on it, and said, "I don't feel so bad now in my stomach." So I smoked a cigarette, and I never did get seasick, but I did start to smoke, which was just as bad. Oh boy. So that storm washed all those lifeboats off the Liberty ship and everything. It was really stormy. And when I went up on deck one morning, the side of the ship was just yellow with the egg yolks. The guys were eating breakfast and throwing them up. Oh.
I bet you that was a sight to see.
Yeah.
Did you ever liberate any concentration camps?
We didn't liberate them, but we seen them walking along the road, coming out of them. And they were zombies. They didn't know whether they were walking or crawling. The poor guys, you could talk to them, they couldn't answer you. That was bad to see. I don't know if I should say this or not, but maybe I better. I was in a town, I don't remember what town it was anymore. And we took this town, and I always go out and look around, see what's around, what's good to eat. They had stuff stored away, the hams and canned stuff, and I went down through it. I was signing on this gate. It says verboten, forbidden. I said that was the wrong thing for me. So I wanted to know why it was forbidden. So I opened the gate and I went in, and I went up the yard there, and there was a little shanty there in the back of the yard. And I didn't bother them much. A nun came running down the path and hollered at me, and she just ripped me up and down for coming in there. I said, "Why didn't I come in here?" She said, "Verboten, verboten." I said, "What do you have in this building here?" She says, she said, "Verboten, verboten." So I wanted to find out what was in there, so I opened the door. And no wonder she didn't want me in there. There was a furnace there where they burned the babies that weren't perfectly normal, They burned them there. She finally told me that what they did. But they were forced to do this. That was ordered. Boy, that was hard to take. A big furnace like that. But I got over that. And
It's a wonder you didn't get sick seeing that.
it does. Yep. Yep. Well, you get sick of seeing a lot of things when you're. One day I was out there walking along the road with the rest of the guys, and then we'd be fired on, from the woods and stuff, and we'd hit alongside the road, and they get up and dig in here. We're going to dig in, so we dug a foxhole. Well, nobody around, so take off again. I dug 4 foxholes that day. Then they come out on the side of a hill, and we're going to dig in here, and we're going to attack that town down over the hill there. I looked over, and here come the tanks, and they come up on the hill alongside of us. And I couldn't move that shovel no more to save my life. So I laid on top of the ground there, and there was some fire from the town on the other side of town. So cannon fire come up through and exploded pretty close to the tanks, and then they opened up. It's a good thing they did, because I couldn't have drug in for no money. I was just that tired I couldn't even move. But they saved everybody there. Tanks fired back and rooted the Germans out of there. And we went back down to town there, and we stayed there for the night. But I couldn't move it. I dug so many holes that day. I remember one day it was in the woods, and I dug a foxhole. And I settled down in there, and oh boy, this is wonderful. So tired. And I heard something coming. Oh, I pulled up a rifle, and I heard something, and I couldn't dare lift my head above the foxhole. So I stood there like this with his rifle. Blip, 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 blip. 4 deer jumped over the foxhole. I couldn't be more surprised in my life. They're half-sized deer over there. Boy, they jumped right over my foxhole.
Well, what was your gut feeling when you had to kill your first enemy? Were you sick?
You don't feel nothing till it's over, because you're that scared that you have to shoot that man or he's going to shoot you. So you shoot him, bang. But then after it's over,
then you get
then you get this feeling of sickness. Yeah, it crawls up, and you have to sit down and recover, because there's no other way about it. But then you get used to it, and you find out that different ways that you can save yourself. Now, I found out that most of the soldiers would look around the corner to see what they can see. And that was the wrong thing to do, because they were looking for that. And they looked about the right height, you know. So I figured, look, if I lay down on the ground and look around the corner, they're not expecting that. And I did that. And I could do that. And that saved a lot of time and a lot of lives, because I could see out where the shooting out the windows and stuff, and where the helmets were. A lot of times I could shoot from there too.
Well, what for weapon did you use back then?
Well, I had an M1, and then one attack we went into, they gave me a carbine and a bazooka. Because the bazooka was heavy, they gave me a little carbine to have then. Well, that was all right, so I was going into an attack in this town, and the guys were shooting, you know. So I started to shoot with this little carbine. Oh, they got nervous. They said, "Lee, don't shoot that. That sounds like a German rifle. You cut that out now." Oh, I says, "You fellas are having all the fun, not me." They never forgot that. They used to tease me about that. But anyway, I shot a few times, and then I cut it out. But they were nervous with hearing that little pop gun carbine going off.
Sounded more or less like a German.
That's right, exactly like a German rifle.
I guess you weren't in the invasion of Normandy, but I guess that was something to see.
Oh.
All those ships out there in the channel and everything.
Yep. Well, there's a lot of stuff laying around when I went in there. But,
What, did you go into France then, or into England?
I went into England, then over into France. See? Yeah.
Across the
Everybody
channel.
landed in England. Yep, you went through that.
Don't you have nightmares?
Yes.
I figured you did.
Yeah, when I talk about this like this, every 3 or 4 days now, till I straighten out again, because it crawls up in my head, and then I lay down and I think of this stuff again. But after a while, it moves away again.
Yeah, that'll be with you the rest of your life. That'll be with you the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It's more now since I'm getting older, you know. I keep remembering more of this stuff. And,
Yeah, see all your good friends are being killed and
oh
stuff like
yes,
that.
yes. We hardly ever had a full squad. And I was out on I done a bad thing one time. Me and my buddy took a house, a little bungalow alongside of a river, and it had a balcony out over the water, you know. So we went out there like dummies to look around, and we should have known better. I heard it crack, but he never did. My buddy just was killed right alongside him. One of my good buddies. But that was the worst thing. You learn. You learn to get killed. You don't make yourself a target any place. But everything was hard.
What rank were you when you got discharged?
Oh, I was only a PFC.
PFC?
Yeah. That was good enough for me.
Yeah, you didn't want no more authority to lead a squad or
that's
something
right.
like that. You wanted somebody else to tell you what to do.
Right. And I could do what I want.
Yeah, you didn't want
Well,
no
this
captain or lieutenant coming down on your backside.
they never bothered us.
Oh, the foot soldier was, they knew what they were doing. These other Louis and that didn't know
Right, no,
doodly
right.
squat.
No, they took orders from some higher up. And,
Sergeants and
yeah,
stuff. The
my
sergeants
sergeant
knew what was going
yeah.
on.
hmm Because
Yeah,
they
they
went
were the
through
ones
it
that-
too, and they knew exactly what to do.
They were the ones that knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Lieutenants and the officers didn't know doodly squat.
We had a master sergeant made lieutenant, a field commission, which was unusual. But he knew what he was doing. He knew how to take care of the company, and he saved us a lot of times by his knowledge. That machine gun that opened up on me out in that field when I fell, him and another fellow went around to the flank and shot him in his foxhole. Otherwise, he'd have got some more of us. But I was lucky that I fell, tripped from going around that tree.
Well, was the German Panzers as, how can I put this? The German tanks, they were
better
better
equipped than ours.
better equipped than the
You
Germans.
betcha. They had more armor, and their 88s could shoot a level projector for miles, level, instead of the arch. They were something, and when they hit our tanks, forget it.
Yeah, but we had so many, we could produce so many Sherman tanks that what made the downfall of the Panzers and that.
Well, they later on they started to put more armor on them, so that it didn't penetrate that quick. See, when a shell goes in through a tank, it shatters and spreads out, ricochets all over. So people in there don't have too much of a chance.
Yeah, but we had more tanks. Like I said, we had the United States produced more tanks, so that's the Germans couldn't produce as many.
That's right. They couldn't produce any after a while because we had
Everything.
everything bombed. I was sitting on a side of the hill. We'd just taken a little town there, and I heard a noise. And I looked out. I looked up. I called the fellows out. Hey, gang, look at this. I looked up. And here come airplanes. Airplanes. Thousands of airplanes. American. Our planes were going over to Hitler. Boy, did they ever clobber him. But they seemed to be low, just mountain tip high, you know. But I was up high too, I guess. But this thing was, you could almost see the people sitting in these airplanes. Thousands of them, bombers and fighters and all kinds.
Something to see.
They really clobbered Hitler.
Berlin.
Berlin, yeah. They really clobbered it.
What was the country like over there?
Well, it's, you know, when we'd taken a town, most of the buildings were made out of stone or something beside wood, because wood's scarce over there. And the only thing that was burning when we'd go in the house would be the framework. So we would pick one that had fire in it, you know, but that was warm, and we'd put the helmets down over this, pour water in, and we'd heat our water and make coffee and stuff, you know, or wash our face or hands or something from the fire of the homes burning, you know. That's the way we kept clean, but very seldom do we ever take a bath. Man, we were crummy.
Yeah, I guess you used the old slit trench when you had to go do number 2, but
we never had nothing like it. We didn't have a chance to dig a slit trench. When you had to go, you went wherever you could find a place to go. But then with the K rations, they were dried food, you know. And it wasn't long till you were constipated.
well, you about done, RJ?
Yep.
You think you got enough?
Yep, that's enough. Thank you, Lee.
Yep.